This is a story I tried to put down it's quite a few years ago now. I've had quite a few attempts at it, never been very happy with them. But it's based on my life when I worked in a factory in the East Midlands, and I often thought they used to have lottery syndicates, and I've often thought what would have happened if the people in the factory had have actually won the lottery. You know, it's a comedy with a small c, but see what you think. Working title, Lottery Dreams. Chapter 1, Factory Life. So it's set in a factory. It's bleak, it's horrible, there's no hope, the men are just ground down to nothing, and all they've got to look forward to is the lottery. It starts. What is a story? It can be a journey to a far-off place, or just a way of escaping. For the people trapped in the factory, it was the story of how they escaped their jobs, escaped their dull little lives, and escaped from the story altogether. Life was bleak, stuck in the sheet metalwork factory. There's only one thing we make here, laughed the foreman with a sneer. Old men. What he meant was, they were here to be turned into old men, and every one of them would think, it can't end here, surely not for me, but it did. Where were the fabulous lives of sports cars, speedboats, of long-legged beauties basking in the hot sun, of men in costumes opening the doors of their limousines so they could pay a fortune for a meal they hated? Where was their share? It certainly was not here. In the morning, Charlie looked into the oily surface of the sheet of metal before him. That world was farther away then than ever. Hope was in sight. There was a way out, and Charlie knew what it was. How's the numbers do on Saturday night, Charlie, said old Dave. Old Dave was not really that old. It was a name that had just stuck. At 60 years of age, he was one of the oldest in the factory, but by far the oldest on the factory floor. His experience made up for much, and the others were in awe of him. When a management decision came down to them, old Dave would cut through the jargon and the deliberately muddied waters to deliver his opinion of what it really meant. The management hated him and the men loved him. Long ago, in the old union days, he would have been a firebrand, a real lefty who would pin down the greedy management with his expert knowledge of employment law and a hatred of the bosses. Those days were long gone now, and no one wanted to return to demarcation and the choice between strikes and the dole. But the old hatred was still there. The lottery, Charlie had almost drifted off and came back to concentrate on their favourite subject. We got two, but the system fell to pieces as usual. I tell you, Dave, we're not going to crack it. All that talk about a winning system, it's just more bull. Now, the system works, Charlie. No one can say it doesn't. Old Dave was adamant about defending the system. When has it ever worked, Charlie wanted to know. They would have gone into a long discussion over the mathematical implications of the system if it was not for the foreman, Urko, wandering over to them at that very moment. We are not paying you to hold a mothers' union meeting here. If you don't like the work, there's the door. His nasty bony finger pointed at the main door of the factory, and every man bit his lip to return to what he was supposed to be doing. Never worked on the machines, said old Dave under his breath. Once the man was out of the way, landed his job by befriending the management. He had good reason to hate Urko, even giving him the nickname. Old Dave had taken it from the planet of the apes. Urko was the ignorant leader of the gorillas. Well, he landed on his feet, that's all I can say. He doesn't even have to bother doing the lottery with the money he's got. Charlie pondered the implications of such a position as he heaved sheets of steel into the blades of the machine. The heavy blades hammered down on the thick sheet to cut it in two and let the other pieces fall away in the back. How many times had he watched this happen? How many times would he still have to witness it? Would he see nothing else until the day he died? Panic set in, and Charlie felt a cold sweat across his body as he looked around. He had to get out. He did not know how, but he had to escape. He could not spend the rest of his life watching sheets of steel being cut into pieces every day. Chapter 2. Meanwhile, in the Med. Now the thing changes completely here. The atmosphere changes completely to the most luxurious place on earth you can imagine. Set in the south of France on the Mediterranean coast with perfect weather, perfect sea, perfect sky, perfect boats, perfect sports cars, perfect trophy girlfriends, and perfect clothes. Meanwhile in the Med. Many miles away, a helicopter touched down beside the blue Mediterranean shore. As the blades whined to a halt, the door opened to reveal the man inside. Piers Morel stepped lightly out and made his way to the waiting Rolls-Royce. The chauffeur opened the door for him with a curt, "Good morning, sir." They were on their way. Piers flicked through the morning papers as the car drove on down the coastal route to Saint-Tropez. His shares were doing well according to the Financial Times, and as he laid the pink paper on the seat beside him and looked at the startling blue waters outside, Piers wondered what chef would have ready for him once he was on board the yacht. The Italian chef was one of the best on the coastal resort, and he was lucky to hire him. What with the coming dinner party for the ambassador, Piers wanted the food to be at its best. He could afford it and saw no reason to hold back. Impressing people had become a watchword with him nowadays, and he basked in the reflected glory of his perfection. Egotistical, yes, but he was confident that quality would win out, and Piers was certainly winning now. The Rolls-Royce drew up at the quayside, and as the security held back the gawping crowds, straining their necks for film stars, Piers, one of the richest men in the world, went on board. "Everything is ready for you, sir," said the captain as he stepped lightly on board his multi-million-dollar yacht, one of the most expensive on the Riviera. Piers looked out at the others. "Thank you, Captain. We'll be taking a trip on the bay before dinner." He looked across the man as he saluted and walked off. Piers was left to look at his rivals, the other men who wanted to carve up the world. Were out there now. Too much was never enough for them, and as yet they had not found all the money in the world, but they were busy searching. It was at times like these that Piers had a mild panic attack. What was it all for? Who was he? Why all this money? Katrina walked up beside him and draped a long, slender arm, weighed down by Armani jewellery, around his waist. "Penny for them, darling," she smiled, the smile of someone whose skin had been pressed by the best beauty salons the world could dream up. "I was far away with my thoughts, Katrina, but you brought me back, as usual. What would I do without you to bring me down to earth?" Piers held her tightly around the waist and looked into her eyes, as blue as the ocean behind her. "Men like you can't dream of problems beset by little men. You are above that now. If I ever cease being hungry, they will devour me. Remember that, Katrina." Piers walked off the deck into the lounge bar. The barman poured him a martini on the gold-topped bar. "Why should you worry, Piers?" she asked, genuinely worried by his sudden dark mood. "You have everything. Your rivals have tried to oust you many times and failed. Each time you bounce back 10 times stronger. The world fears and respects you. Maybe I am ungrateful for my position, but it doesn't stop me forgetting how I got here." He took a long drink from the glass and listened to the girl and the plans for the evening. I think we'll leave it there for the moment.